my God. Oh my God. Look at this. Okay. All right. So my point here is I am not eating ice cream by myself. Okay? Ever.
Right.
Ever. That's not, if I have the opportunity to have ice cream with a good friend, why would I ever say, no, you can't have ice cream, but watch me. Watch me, though.
Yeah. You're my first mixer friend that I've gotten ice cream with.
Aww.
Look at
Well,
that.
to many more, friend. Maybe it'll become
Yeah.
a tradition. Whenever we do interviews, we have ice cream together.
Yeah. I like it.
What ice cream are you having?
I'm having a black raspberry ice cream. That's so good. What are you having?
That is my favorite ice cream, and I can't find it anywhere in the stores around here.
Really? We just found it like a week ago and lost our minds. We're like, we need more of this ice cream.
Good. Black raspberry is so good. Ty, you beautiful creature. Yeah. Maybe something a smidge healthier? No. No. I did yoga. Seriously, the whole time I was doing yoga, I was thinking about ice cream. And it's light ice cream, but it is it's chocolate what is cookies and cream, that one. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a great one. It's a classic.
Yeah, that is a classic, but like it's no, dude, black raspberry. Apparently only old ladies like black raspberry, so I'm very excited that you like black raspberry.
We learned something new. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I guess it's like I don't know. I guess it's a stereotypical thing.
Yeah. I feel like I should be watching Jeopardy.
We have been watching Jeopardy to go to sleep recently because it's on Netflix.
Nice.
If anybody wants ice cream, take a second while we're warming up, okay? To get your ice cream. Like, go. Pistachio, amazing. Yup. Vaclita, thank you so much for the follow. Pixel Me Sane, thank you so much for the follow. Muggle Fuggles, hello. Yeah. Dylan Atkins, hi. Hummus and veggies. Oh, Bliffle, why you gotta ruin this atmosphere? Oh, come on. Can I get ice cream? It's 7 a.m. Dylan, yes, you have my permission to go and get ice cream. Live your best life, okay?
It's not 6 a.m, so you're fine.
Yeah. Another great point. This is why I was like, Ty, would you please come on to the show? There's like current events going on. A lot of them are about ice cream. I hear that my
feed is full of ice cream talk.
Ice cream talk.
Can't stop talking about it.
It's kind of disgusting because there's still coronavirus going on and all people are talking about is ice cream. Yeah. They're talking about how the cookies and cream ice cream is constantly just murdering the black raspberry ice cream in sales in stores.
I didn't know that's how the segue was gonna work, but I like it.
It got dark real fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kid Carbon, exactly ice cream time. Ty with the big facts. No ice cream before 6 a.m. Now I want ice cream. I'm going to get some. That segue was gold. That's because cookies and cream is the bomb. Not with my segue.
Not with her. I agree. It is really, really good.
It's tasty.
But that analogy kind of ruined the cookies and cream for the next hour.
Dark like dark chocolate or dark in an alley? I think we got to move away from the 1 minute.
Yeah, this segue is going to get worse. It's
as time goes on.
You moved. No, I stayed the same place.
Wait, I thought you said you moved.
No, you moved.
Yeah,
Did you know you moved?
No, Are you sure?
Yeah, you moved. And you got the Tangled part.
Yeah, I did. No, thank you very much. Didn't you move? You said I DM'd you on Twitter, and you said something about a move. The unpacking and sort of, I'll be down. I can't. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. So I read it as you were unpacking and sorting.
No.
Okay, you were asking me. Ben and Jerry is rubbish, though. All right, you're out. Kid Carbon's banned for life. Do not shit on Ben and Jerry. Ben and Jerry's amazing. Ban this dude. I am on a sugar rush. I am very sensitive to sugar. To water. Yeah. So
I was
So,
on this show a month ago.
oh, really?
It
That's
was
it?
May 19th.
Okay.
But a lot has happened within that month, so it feels like it was quite a while ago.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel
Because,
about everything that happened?
well, how do I feel about everything that happened? That's a I feel like it's a big question, but also a very
It's a
easy question.
huge question.
It's a huge question, but it's how do I feel? I'm devastated, heartbroken, scared. Um, I think every person of color, when watching the video,
Right.
can easily visualize themselves as under the knee. Um, but also a bit excited because I feel like the focus, like with the pandemic, the focus is so on this right now. And I'm
Yeah.
like, so can change like actually come? Can this not be just this fad that happened for a week?
Are you worried that it is a fad? Like, are you feeling it's fatty? Fad-y, not
um,
fatty?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But uh, because I also see the even this week the reminding, guys, this is still a thing. Like
Yeah.
the fact that
Right,
it's
right, right.
even lasted right till now
Yeah.
is impressive.
I see that.
Yeah, I hope it's different, and it's um at least in the U.S. Election is coming up, and although the topic isn't, I think it's a human topic, but the solutions lie in politics. That's just the country we live in. So if we're going to make change, it's going to be through politics and policy changes. And so I'll admit I've never voted for a presidential election. I've only voted for local
What?
elections.
What?
And
Wait, you voted in local elections at least. Okay.
yes, I
Okay.
voted in local elections. I've never voted for presidential elections, and I feel
Can we back up and you can tell me why?
responsibility on that. Um, I just didn't think it was a big deal if I voted. I'm one of those people, it's like
Okay.
my vote
Oh,
really
it doesn't matter.
count.
My vote doesn't
Right.
count. Okay.
I live in a state that is opposite of normally what I would have voted for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but just within the last month, educating myself on the whole topic of Black Lives Matter or um, systemic racism, I'm like, oh, I my vote does, like, I don't even care if the one I vote for doesn't win. It very much matters. And
I
so
always I always say
I'm
that
looking
it's
forward to it.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you.
no, go ahead.
I always say that it's also a great way to clear your conscience later, because you don't get to say because I will throw it back in somebody's face when people are like, oh, the current president, senator,
Right.
they're such a, and I'm like, did you vote? And they're like, no. And I'm like, then I don't really want to hear it, to be completely
Yeah.
honest. I don't really want to hear your political. And then in my mind also, I get, not that it makes it any better, especially if the guy or gal you voted for doesn't win, but in my mind also, if I vote and the person doesn't win and I don't agree with them and they start enacting policies I don't agree with, I kind of feel a little bit less guilty being like, I didn't want this. I tried. I did something. It might not be like everything and the only thing that I could have done, but I did something, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get that. I don't complain about presidents because of that. I agree with that. So I do not complain. I think my wife votes because she wants to complain on Twitter. Like, I think that's probably the motivation for her. But yeah, I completely agree. You don't really get to complain about things if you're not using the power that you have.
Yeah. But then at the same time, when you do have, an entire half of the country, a little bit, maybe less than half, but that's not really the point. But when you have a chunk of the country voting and doing everything and it just feels like they're not being heard, that's a separate problem. Yeah. And that is systemic racism. Episode over. That's it. We learned you everything.
Yeah.
No, but I can understand how people also just feel powerless and feel like racism is a thing. It's still happening. I'm going to vote and my gal is not going to win and nothing's going to change. So why even try?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, oh man, I didn't know. Because we didn't like talk about topics that we talk about. We
No,
just
we
said we were
didn't.
going to talk about recent events, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, that could go a million different ways. And so like learning about uh, the country's history of racism and how it's affected uh, specifically Black people, but people of color, and even because of mass incarceration and
Mm-hmm.
voting numbers being hurt by that because those people can never vote
Right.
again. And then so it's just like, yeah, I need to vote. Like there are people of color who do not have that right anymore. Do they don't get to vote anymore.
Right.
Um, and so it's more important to me as a person of color now than ever. And I wish I would have. I wish schools taught this stuff. I hate that I'm learning this stuff for the first time ever now. And like the Tulsa riot, I learned about that when we watched Watchmen on HBO. And I was like, I remember we were watching, it's in the first episode, and my wife and I are watching, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of crazy that could happen one day. And just like, I was like, I'll just see where they base that off of. Maybe they based it off of like a true story, but it's not really something that happened.
Sure.
It's just slightly based on it. And I'm learning about it, and I was like, this happened. And I was like, Candace, this actually happened. Um, and I never knew about it until I was watching a comic book show on HBO.
On HBO. Did,
Yeah.
have you ever heard of the Harlem Freedom Fighters?
No. Oh, I slightly. I feel like they talk about it in the movie Freedom Riders, but
Oh.
that's it.
So it's a comic written by Max Brooks. Max Brooks of the World War Z fame. And he wrote that book, and it's
Okay.
about it's about the a squadron of black men who fought in World War II that nobody talks about. And I learned about it because I was going through the shelves. And I studied history. I posted this on Twitter. This is not me virtue signaling. This is my background in this. This is why I have any semblance of understanding. I literally went to college and studied American history with a focus on African American history and colonialism. So that is, I learned this stuff. I spent $60,000 on a degree that did not teach me about the Harlem Freedom Fighters.
It's crazy.
That's
Yeah.
wild. That's wild. Yeah.
And that doesn't even make our like country look bad. Like the fact that there is a squadron of African Americans in World War II who did awesome work. Like it doesn't. It's there's no way that makes the country itself look bad.
Right. Right.
like I can kind of see if I like squint my eyes, maybe close my left eye. I can kind of see why the Tulsa riots weren't talked about. Kind of.
Just why? Because they're violent. There's this conversation constantly about if it's we don't want violence. We don't want to talk about violence, but nobody pays attention when it's not violent. But yeah,
well, I don't know. It's just it makes our country look bad. So I can see why
okay.
someone might be able to justify that. But to not talk about the freedom fighters that you're talking about, like that doesn't even make our country look bad. That just makes Black people look good. And so we just didn't talk about it, and we didn't learn about it. And I went to social studies, and I remember loving my history class, but I'm like, what did I learn? There's so much that I didn't even know, and I'm having to learn out and figure out on my own now.
In college, my third semester, I think I had an internship with Pearson Education, who writes the textbooks that you read for social studies and stuff. And one of my jobs was to go in and edit the textbook the Texas, so several states, when states are big enough and their departments of education are big enough, they could pay Pearson to say, we want to teach the curriculum this way, edit your book. And so Pearson, it was my job to redline. You take an old copy, you redline it, meaning you edit out, and I had to edit out and rewrite the portion about how Thomas Jefferson owned slaves.
That's so crazy.
That's like, so he just didn't have and they're like, well, what's the problem? It's not that we're revising it. We're just not talking about the fact that he owned slaves anymore.
Right.
That's the problem. That therein is the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, and that like helps propel the never fixing policies, right? Like if we never acknowledge the things we did wrong, then how do we fix them? Like, and so I don't like, I get why there are systems in place still, or that for a while systems in place existed for, you know, things like Jim Crow laws and stuff like that lasted like 100 years. It's because we don't like to acknowledge the ugly parts, and then as soon as we quote unquote fix them, we're like, well, let's not talk about it. It's all fixed. It's all good. Let's sweep it under the rug. But we also know that we can't just ignore things that go wrong, which is why we talk about the rest of the world's problems. Like, that's the reason we still talk about those. So because we know you can't just ignore those, but America doesn't like to look at their own.
Yeah, we learn history so we don't repeat it, but we learn other people's history so we could point their noses and be like, we did it better. We did it better, right? Everybody, we didn't have Nazis. Am I right?
Yeah.
So much better than you guys. We just had systematic racism and put Japanese people in camps. Don't worry about it. They weren't Nazis, so it's fine. Yeah. It's stressful and frustrating. But France, you're speaking German if you weren't for us. Yeah. They weren't Nazis. It's fine. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a really interesting piece because we kind of got into this discussion yesterday, and I wanted to hear your honest take on, do you feel like taking down in the same vein, and I have an opinion on this, but do you feel that in that same vein of erasing history, taking away Confederate flags potentially erases the reminder that, like, yo, Confederacy was bad, okay? It's not good. We don't want people walking around being Confederates anymore. Do you feel like that's one and the same?
That's a great question. I don't now. Now this is before I answer that question.
Okay.
Completely.
Okay.
I think like a big thing right now that we all need to allow and focus on is allowing people to be where they're at in their thoughts, and allowing them to grow in their thoughts. Like cancel culture is just like ruin that, right? Like,
you're not allowed to make mistakes.
But like, this is, we're all human. Smart people, good people have believed stupid things for years. Right. And no one is free of that. So I say that because I don't know, I might change my mind, but as of right now, I don't think it's the same thing. Like, I don't think I haven't forgotten about what the Nazis have done, right? And I don't need a flag to remind me what they've done. Like, I'm very much aware of how wrong it was. And I don't feel like I need that reminder.
Yes. I'm very much of that thought as well, because I don't want to be, it makes me feel ashamed in the sense of, like, I don't want people to publicly get the wrong idea when they see it, right? Like, if a tourist comes to my country and they go, what's that flag for? And I'm like, oh, a whole half the country thought owning slaves was cool, so they seceded and made their own flag about it. And people would be like, oh, so you guys are still cool with that? That's why you have that there? No, but we don't want to remove it because we don't want to pretend it's not there. Oh, okay, like just looking at it, trying to look at it from a foreigner's perspective, I feel like, or
Right.
from somebody, I don't know, aliens, whatever floats your boat, right? But at the same time, because I feel like the reason it's left up is the wrong reason. If somebody, again, we talked about this yesterday, if we had put it in a museum and said, here are what Confederate flags look like.
Right. Yeah.
That's literally saying, come and study this, right? Versus
Right.
saying, oh, that flag is flying on that building, but they're not for that. They're different,
Right.
but we wanted to keep it there because, history and whatever. Like, it's tough.
It's a
but
bit weird.
Yeah.
Because like we don't have the different variations of the U.S. flag that it's gone through as a part of a history lesson.
That's a
right?
really good point.
So it seems to be more than, oh, this is done because it's for history. It's like I totally understand putting it inside of a building, like a museum, and being like, this is part of our history. Our country once fought itself. Like, we were at such a disagreement. We went at war with ourselves. This is part of that. And that's important to know. But the fact that up until recently, it wasn't like banned from government buildings or military bases is a bit weird, just because, like I said, we don't fly any other variations of the U.S. flag as part of history. And it's just also weird to fly the flag that lost, I guess. Like,
yeah,
it's the country. So you have the U.S. flag on one side, and you're like, this side won, but we're gonna fly. I don't know. It's just,
that's a really good point too. And to put it in perspective, in Germany, you are not allowed to fly the German flag anywhere. It is not legally allowed. You can see a German flag in a museum. You could see it at the UN, but you cannot. So the way we found out about this is my father collects whatever country he goes to, who brings back a little flag, whether it's on a toothpick or like a little thing. And everywhere he asked in Germany, they're like, no, we don't have that. And they were like offended. So because, and in part it's because of like the whole Nazi history, if we're talking about, comparing like, well, we didn't do that, so they did that, and they didn't want reminders of those hanging around. So they took them all down. Imagine you went to Germany and you went to Auschwitz and there was a Nazi flag there to be like, that's why those guys,
right.
They're right there. Like, isn't that adding insult to injury?
Yeah.
Yes, of course, Stuart. Yes, of course it is flown there, but like it's not like you can't, like, people don't fly it in their homes and stuff.
Right. And I'm not like against the American flag. I love seeing the American flag.
Of course, no. I want people to see my flag. Of course, like of my I think Germany's a little too extreme, but I'm just saying like that's what they did to remove that problem.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why that's why I do think it was interesting that the Confederate flag was flown around for so long, just because, like, the reason I feel so much pride in the American flag is that it fought against things that once that Confederate flag represented. Right. So to still have it flying around was to see one thing that I love representing, and then another thing that it once fought against in my country's history to get rid of. And I was like, but why is that still a thing? I have friends who hold true to that it's not a racist symbol, and I think for them it might be a non-racist issue, but I feel different, I guess.
Yeah. Interesting. Once you start, okay, we can't, this is a very distinctly American thing. And I say this as an American citizen who became an American citizen. So I said, hey, this country is so cool. I'm going to go learn all of its laws and devote my life to being not the person that I was born being, which is a Russian citizen. Okay? So I say this as like, I chose this because I like this better. So I feel like that weighs a little bit different. But you guys, Americans can't keep saying, as soon as somebody does something you don't like, you can't keep yelling freedom of my expression. You can't keep saying that infringes on your rights. Being a jerk or flying a flag of people who are jerks is not kosher, is not bueno. It doesn't infringe on your rights to be a nice person. If it does, I think that's a problem. Is that extreme? Ty, what's your take on that? Yes, you do have the freedom to say whatever you want, but there's no freedom of consequences and freedom of reacting to that. And again, freedom, you have the right to be a jerk and fly the flag of a jerk, but that still makes you a jerk. And I don't think us saying, "Hey, can you not be a jerk," and like not fly that around. It makes a lot of people feel uncomfortable. It makes a lot of people, it reminds a lot of people of like very painful parts of history. I don't think that that's taking away your freedom. I think that's you being courteous, which is part of being free.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with, and I think most times when the question asked is, if we take away this freedom, like where do we stop?
Yeah.
I think the same people who ask that question can also list the things they think that the country should not allow people to do. So it seems odd that you might ask, well, you can't take away this because then you take away my freedom. But I would wager to say that most people who say that also agree that you can't just do whatever the hell you want, right? And
Right.
so they also have a list of things that you shouldn't be able to do, even
Right.
though it might be taking away your freedom.
Right.
Um,
You're free to murder people. Like, you're totally free. Am I taking away your freedom by saying don't murder people? It's not nice. It's not nice to kill other people. Don't do it. Oh, you're not going to listen to that? Okay, I'm going to put in a law about don't kill other people. Now you have to listen to it.
yeah.
And that's the slope.
And that's the slope.
But if we
Yeah.
can all, I mean, laws are, and especially in a democracy, if the way it works with a real democracy is laws are enacted because a lot of people agree, hey, this is not pro-social norm to do this. This is not okay. So these are not like infringed, these are not like side things that we're talking about. These are not side things that we're arguing about. This is not, you can't have the ice cream you want. This is us saying, don't fly a flag that literally represents racism. It's two different things. You have the freedom of speech, you have the freedom of choice, you have the freedom of religion, because those are super, super important to you as a being, as a whole. And not being racist is also a thing that we all agreed upon is super important to your being and as a whole. So making laws against that. Am I making sense? Ty, can you say something?
Sorry, I was reading.
I'm reading the chat too. So what if a majority said that no one is allowed to fly the pride flag? Why is the majority saying that? They did, actually. Hold on, let's back up. They did. We did flip that script. We said, hey, that pride flag is actually pretty okay to fly. We all took a vote, and then the really important people, 9 of them, in the Supreme Court took a vote and said, no, it's really cool. They should be able to fly that flag. That flag does not represent hatred. So we can fly the flag. But before that, a bunch of people said, I don't want you flying your flag. And they were, and that has nothing to do with freedom as much as it has to do with how the country tilts one way or another. Yeah, Lynch Legend, I agree. I just thought it looked like a cool design. I even had one thing after learning that the history of the Civil War, I would never fly it again.
Yeah.
This is hypothetical, but Ashes, there's a reason we can't just pull on stuff out of randomness and be like, but what about this thing? Because one, anybody can argue back. There's probably an answer. I might not always have it immediately. I might not always be able to snap back and be like, aha, I got you. But like pulling out random tidbits and being like, what about this? That doesn't make you good at an argument. That just means you're really good at like improvising and thinking about random tidbits. All right, I will shut up now, Ty. I would love to hear your thought.
I was just reading who was it, G-Man? I just thought it was interesting because like the flag itself is not wrong, right? It's just a fabric with a design on it.
Right.
what's wrong is the representation of what it means. Like, because honestly,
Yes.
when I was a kid and I first saw the swastika, I loved it. I thought it was a cool thing to draw. You remember when you used to do
It's
the S's
yes.
with like the three lines
Yes.
and then another three line?
Because your
Yeah, I thought it
brain
was
is
the
like, how
same
do I
thing.
do that? Yeah,
Right.
how do I do
I thought it
like
was
your
the
brain
same
wants
thing.
to uh-huh.
And so I loved it. I was like going around my house, like drawing it, and my mom was like, "Do you know what that represents? Oh, by itself, it's just a symbol. Like it's just a design. But
Yes,
once
it's
you start
actually a
learning the
Native
history of
American
it,
symbol, right? Originally it was a Native American it is a flag. Sorry, I don't mean to
no,
interrupt you.
no, no. Go ahead. You're the history major.
There
Be a
is
history major.
there is I don't want to misquote, but there is a Native American tribe that flies a flag that looks very much like the Nazi symbol. And it was really interesting because my sister entered a home of somebody who was flying this flag, and we're for those of you who don't know, I have a Jewish background, so she's like, and the flag was like pretty proudly displayed around like rifles and stuff. And she went to the person she was with, and she's like, "Did they not know that I'm Jewish? Because I don't really know what to do. I'm very uncomfortable." And he's like, "That's a Native American symbol. You're an asshat. Like you look like an asshat right now." But that just goes to show, yes, it represents different things for different people. But sorry, could go on with your thought.
Yeah. No, no, no. That and it's just it wasn't until I learned its history and what it represented that it then became a bad symbol in my mind. Like, but before then, it was just cool and like super fun to draw. And
Mm-hmm.
and so we do have to take that into context, like that the what it represents and what it definitely represented during the Civil War. Um, but yeah, I don't know.
Well, so Ashes, what decides when we get to stop is a bunch of people sitting in a room arguing about it, and then it goes to the Supreme Court and they uphold it or cross it. I'm not saying it's a flawless system, but I am saying we didn't just like all wake up one morning and go, Confederate flag, get it out of here. I don't think it's pretty enough. Like that's not what happened, right? So I don't think it infringes on your rights to take away something that hurt a lot of people, that a lot of other people sat down and agreed about. If that does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Like
This line switches back and forth every
because
time. It's true.
because you don't get to fly that flag. I would say it doesn't make you less American. Like you don't get
Right.
there are not, because you no longer get to do that. There are not things that as an American that you normally would have gotten to do that you now no longer get to do
Yeah.
because you don't have the flag. But I'm really loving this conversation because I think this conversation on social media just becomes a
Oh,
shouting match, right? And so I'm like,
I would have been canceled by now.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love talking about. I love that Ashes is bringing the a different side, right? The other side, because
Yes. Thank
I
you.
think it's important to be able to see and hear both sides and both express your opinion without thinking that the other person is evil incarnate. Like, I just think that's important.
I totally agree. And Ashes, even though you're playing devil's advocate, I appreciate. Again, I do want to hear the other side, but sometimes, and maybe this is wrong of me, but sometimes I hear the other side and that just makes me affirm, no, that's the exact reason why I agree with my point.
Yeah.
I want to try to find the Harlem Freedom Fighters book because it's bothering me because I can't. I want to find it. It should take me to. There they are. And I said it wrong. It's Harlem Hellfighters. There it is.
Hellfighters.
Hellfighters. And it's World War I. Wow, guys. That's why it was bothering me. I was like, I don't think I said the right thing. And I'm leading people to believe there's this comic. And I lied on 4 different fronts. It was World War I, which is even more impactful because that's way before any civil rights was enacted. brings to life a long-forgotten piece of American history. Anyway, I highly recommend reading the crap out of this. It was really good. 369th Infantry Regiment marched home triumphantly from World War I. They spent more time in combat than any other American unit, never losing a foot of ground to the enemy or a man to capture, and winning countless decorations. Though they returned heroes, these African-American unit faced tremendous discrimination, even from their own government. The Harlem Hellfighters, as Germans called them, fought courageously on and off the battlefield to make Europe and America safe for democracy. Ooh, chills. Anyway, good book.
Nice.
Good night, Bashing. Thank you so much for being here, my love.
That's the fact that what you just read, the fact that that wasn't shared blows my mind. Like that wasn't taught.
Yeah.
Like, nothing about that. Like we just spent, I don't know, 20 minutes talking about the Confederate flag and what it represented and things like that. Like what you just shared feels like such an easy. Well, there's no one that's going to say this is bad for the country, right? Like
right. There's no.
That's why it's like, but we didn't teach it.
Yeah. Yeah. Right, Dylan, you're totally right. Do you know that who Daryl Davis is? The activist who literally collects the robes from white supremacy. No, I didn't know about that person.
Oh, yeah, I saw a TED Talk with him.
Oh, that's so. He collects them as mementos, or collects them as like reminders of American history. Like what's his angle there?
He collects robes and as well as like chains that were on a slave ship. But yeah, it's a trophy, really. It's a trophy on how many people, because he's getting them from ex-Klan members, right? So
Ex-Klan members. Oh, like, he's a black guy who talks him out of being. Right. Dude, that's wicked. Like, I want to know about this guy.
So they're like giving it to him as like, all right, I'm giving this up completely, and you're having the symbol that I used to hide behind, and kind of go after your people. Wow. Yeah.
Wow. Allowing anything and everything gives a place for people to be radicalized. And if a person is legit denying the humanity of someone, they are wrong. To allow symbols of that gives them space to continue that line of thinking. Right, like, I don't believe... Like, I feel... Okay, maybe this is a little bit radical, but I feel like by giving space to people to be like, oh, it's okay, you can fly the Nazi flag over there, you can fly the Confederate flag over there, you can have a flag that says I want to murder you if you look different over it. That's totally fine. Saying that that's okay is the equivalent of turning a blind eye. And then when that person goes... Right? If they believe in something like that, and if that person then takes an action like that, you can't sit around and be like, oh, who would have thought? How did this happen? And like somebody loses their life over it. Right? Like versus being like, hey, you really shouldn't have that. We should take that down. Here's why that's wrong. I don't think, maybe that's the issue, is that we just take something away, or somebody feels like they're getting something taken away from them instead of being educated and taught what they gain instead by loving instead of hating. Does that make sense?
Right.
So like, if you physically feel like your freedom is being taken away because you cannot represent the fact that you're racist, that tells me that the educational system has failed you somehow.
Yeah.
Got it up in a tab. Ashes, I'm excited you do. That's awesome. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because if we constantly say that it's okay, they're just trying to express themselves, and then they express themselves by hurting somebody else, and they had a symbol of hurting somebody else. We can't, that's the equivalent of turning the blind eye to that and saying, oh, it's okay. It's okay that they think these things. as long as they're not acting on them. And then they'll act on them. And then what do you say to yourself? You say, oh, that was okay. They were just expressing themselves. But what if they hurt somebody?
I agree. I agree. We do have to educate them. Like it can't just be remove, right, the symbol and be like, okay, well now it's fixed, right? It's got to be like, and this is why it's wrong, and this is like, and educating and not just saying you just don't get to do this. Um, I agree that educating is part of that process, and telling them why it is wrong, rather than just saying this is bad. Now go on. You don't get to do this one thing anymore, because that doesn't really fix it, right? Like
No.
if they're really a racist, taking away their flag doesn't make them not a racist,
Right.
right? And so that's why it's so important to have conversations and educate and be like, okay, now like we took this symbol away, but this is like why. It's not just because we think that fixes the problem.
It's true. Ashes, I'm not following your metaphor, so I'm not following your metaphor. No, I'm saying some. Okay, so we like go back and look at people who have like been mass murderers, and then we like learn they used to write letters and tell their teachers, "I'm gonna go murder a bunch of people." That's who I'm connecting to. I'm not talking about what you're talking about, which is just coincidence, right? Which is why it's important. Yeah, Ravinia? Did I have that right? I completely Ravi. Oh. But in a real judicial system, it takes more than coincidence to convict. That's also a very good point. But Ravi's point is very important. What do you think? So I'm a white person, and I have been asking my black counterparts quite a bit, what can I do? And I understand that is putting the burden on you to be like, here's the ways that you could not be a racist dick. I don't know why this is my problem. You're the racist dick. I think you should be solving this. But here, let me explain to you why you shouldn't be and how to do it. Do you find that is like burdensome, or do you find it annoying that people would come to you with that question? Do you find that it's like, nah, you have to be patient. We have to educate people. Like, what are your thoughts there?
I get why. I don't find it burdensome, but I get why people would, and I get why they might feel exhausted, being that person of color that all the friends comes to, on how to approach this and everything. Um, but I if I'm talking to people of color and like I'm trying to give them more energy to keep having those conversations, because they come from a great spot, and in my opinion, um I need white people to speak for me. Like I've used this example multiple times when they were doing the sit downs and lock-ins and boycotts.
Mm-hmm.
I do not think it would have had the impact it did if busloads of white people didn't come down and help with them. Right? If it was just blacks, I just don't think it would have had, because when busloads of white people come down, it's like, okay, well, you can say, oh, you guys are just sympathizing with them and you guys don't really know any better, but eventually it's going to break through. And I just don't, if there's a group of people that are being silenced, then I love that my white friends are sharing things, because I'm like, well, maybe they can hear you, because it's so easy to like shut me down as being the angry person of color. And so
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like it's easier to be lumped into that. And so I like seeing, I'm like moved in, like I'm like in tears anytime I see white people posting it. And I know a lot of people are like, guys, you're white, stop posting it, you didn't go through this. So I'm like, no, please, like, please keep posting it.
I think the reason, and there's racism in there for sure. Like, oh, this doesn't make sense to me unless a white person says that's there's
Right.
shit there too, sure. But I think it's also in part of like a lot of people, just by nature of human nature, you have to work against this, but we tend to relate to things more if somebody who looks like us does them. So I could dissociate myself from saying that black guy's in pain. Well, I'm fine. I'll never be
Right.
hurt like that because I don't look like them. And I'm not saying that's right, but I am saying that that is part of our brain. He doesn't look like me. He is other. He is different. Or they, she, whatever.
Right.
Versus if you see somebody who looks like you can start putting yourself in their shoes and you can say, okay, if this is important to them, maybe it should be important to me because they look like me and they have, they wear the same dress that I would probably wear and they have the same similar earrings, but yet they're talking about Black Lives Matter. Why is this important to them? Maybe it should be important to me. So on one hand, it's shitty, but on the other hand, like, and that's why I say, like, if other white people, I can't speak on behalf of black people in any shape or form and will never pretend to, but if other white people feel like uncomfortable coming to black people or feel like they've been turned away because, again, racism is not black people's problem to solve, I am happy to take the patience that you guys don't necessarily have anymore from just being exhausted from constantly needing that patience. I am one step away removed to be able to say, all right, I talked to Ty and he recommended you do this kind of stuff. And if you don't know how to do it, he's fucking tired of telling people how to do it. So you can come to me and I'll explain how to do it. And if I don't know, we'll both go to Ty together and be like, yo, we actually really don't get this. So somebody has to have the patience for it.
And the great thing is there are you can hear the conversations that a lot of smart people of color have through books. Like you don't even have to go to a friend. Like right now, Audible is like full of them. Like it's the top books. Like How to Be an Anti-Racist. It's like number 1, number 2.
Yeah.
Get it? Like so if you do have people in your life who are like, I just don't have that energy right now. And I get it because I have friends who are like, dude, are you kind of tired? And I'm like, I get you guys are tired, but they're coming to us like they want our opinion. That's kind of like fun. Like, let's just give our opinion. But if you're tired, I get it. Recommend the books. It's okay. Rest up and then have those conversations with them in like a week or 2.
Yeah. Yeah. It is hard. The books, you guys, you turn on Netflix, there's a whole section now of like why, like, hey, get this. I think Hulu also did something. I know Amazon has it, Amazon Prime. Like a lot of places are now like, people are tired of talking about this. You can come here and educate yourself by yourself as much as you can. Yeah, Netflix. Right. Yep. Yeah,
there's a ton. We live in a day and age where we just get to connect to a ton of information. So definitely, the 13th, the documentary on Netflix.
Yeah.
It is so great. It's so great. It's about the 13th Amendment and mass incarceration. And so it's all out there.
Yeah. I've had people. Here's the thing. So mass incarceration. I would rather you come to me and argue with me that it's not real, or white privilege. I would rather you come to me and argue with me that that's not real than just sit quietly and be afraid to express yourself because you're not sure how to bring this up to a person of color. I would rather you come to me and we argue about it. Even though it is a broken telephone situation, I can never give you the same information that Ty could just because of firsthand experience. But I can at least point you to, hey, I read this book about this and it's real. It's a thing. Yeah, white privilege. Yeah, it's a real thing. Here, go over here. There's a resource for you. Go watch this movie. There's a resource for you. I would way rather, that's kind of my point. It's not a virtue signaling thing. It's not a like, I get this better, I want to speak on your behalf. It's more of a, I would rather you talk about it with me than not talk about it at all because you're afraid. Does that make sense? White privileges. Some people argued with me the other day that it wasn't. I almost lost my shit. But Team Toad has asked a question. I want to answer it. When stuff, hold on. When stuff like when a person is too woke and tries to relate to a black person, or if a person takes a Mexican person out for tacos for their first meetup, but like they just like tacos, that awkward racist toned moment, microaggressions, right? How do y'all handle it? Ty, that's a great question for you, I think.
Oh.
Like I had a really
I
weird moment where I asked a black person to like we were talking about a picnic and I was like we're talking about going out to eat like outside like a picnic type of thing. And I had said like, "Oh my god, I love watermelon. Can you bring some watermelon?" And then I stepped back and I was like, "Oh fuck, that's not right. That doesn't sound good."
I don't really know because I feel like um I'm a little more soft on this subject. Like I understand, and it's that understanding that um they don't have, they're not full of the solutions, and they're like at the end goal. Like they're, everyone's in this process. Everyone is a work in progress, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so although someone might be, you know, level 58 as far as their knowledge and their wokeness, whatever that means, and then someone else might be level 24. I'm okay with them being at level 24 so long as they're striving to get to level 25. So when so when some people are like, hey, just so you know, we had a potluck at work. I brought up pineapple upside down cake because I knew you were gonna be here. I could be like, I could get upset, but I understand the heart behind it. Like, sure, it's too woke or whatever, but um I guess I've dealt with so many people on the opposite of end who didn't think it was a thing at all, who uh right don't believe in even trying to understand my point. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm totally okay with taking the time it needs to explain why this isn't the case, or why it would be viewed as wrong to think, oh, if Mexicans are here, we'll make tacos, they'll love it because, you know, they love tacos, and we'll make, I'll bring watermelon because DJ's coming and he's black and he'll feel welcomed and accepted. Um, so I get the heart behind it, and so I just have conversations with them because in my mind, those people are willing to have conversations rather than the people who just don't believe that systemic racism is like in their mind, there's no way it could exist, and racism is a blown out of proportion. Like we're just being dramatic about these things. Um, so so when someone is doing that, I'm like, well, at least I know that they're gonna have a conversation. Sorry, that was a long way to answer,
No, that's a beautiful
but yeah,
answer. Where do you think the line is between somebody who's like overcompensating, right? And being like, DJ's there, I'm gonna bring the watermelon. Like, where's that line? Or I guess I feel like it's a very thin line. No, I lost my train of thought. There is a line between overcompensating and actually meaning well, I think. That's what I'm trying to
yeah.
say. Where do you think that line is?
Where's the I don't know if there's like a definite way to say that there's a line. Um, I guess like the way I think about it. So the way I can most relate with people on the opposite end of this conversation is that I grew up against uh, LGBT, right? I grew up in a very strong, like strongly rooted Christian belief that like that was wrong. Um, and it wasn't until like I left home, um, where I started to got to think for myself and got to be like, I can't believe I've been spreading this hate on, and so that's how my relation with that. And so the way I could say the line is when are you like no longer treating them as you would any other person, when it starts to become, oh, that black person is coming, therefore I should get what black people like,
Oh,
rather than
okay.
DJ's coming, what does DJ like
What is
does he
DJ as a
even like
human
what are, like
being? Right.
right, what is DJ as a human being. And that's been how it's been for me with people that who are LGBT. Like it's not like what would a gay person like, it's like what what do you just like I don't even care. Like how do I treat you as I would treat anyone that I would consider a loved one. And that's when when you start to make different like decisions based off of, well, what would they like based off of their skin color, that's when you've crossed the line.
Okay. But don't you think, this is me playing devil's advocate, but don't you think that's just them putting in an effort? Like, what if that's their way of putting in an effort? I know that sounds terrible, but like,
No.
what what
That
if
goes back to that last one. It's like that is them putting in effort. So although they might have crossed the line as a person of color, I'm like, yeah. I mean, I don't like pineapple upside down cake. And had you got to know me as a human being, you would have known that. But you tried. Like I can appreciate the hell out of that because there's so many people who don't even want to try. So I'm like, yeah, you tried. Um, and so it's way. I think there's a lot of um. I think a lot of conversation is like, so this problem was caused by white people, so white people have to fix it, and it's not.
oh.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
human thing. Like, sure,
Mm-hmm.
we can say white people have to fix it. No, we all have to fix it. And so when those conversations, when my white coworker brings in things that she thinks Maui from Moana would like because I'm Polynesian and I have tattoos, although I don't like them, it's still part of my job as a human to be like, I can appreciate you trying. Now let's talk about this. Like that, this is what I actually like. What do you like? Like, I'm not gonna. And I actually had to talk about this with a viewer and a friend because I said I took my wife out to frozen yogurt because she's a white girl, so obviously she was gonna like that.
I've
And
said
my
that
friend was
about
like,
myself. Uh-huh.
right, we all believe these. We're all there are all
I
these
I
biases
like pumpkin spice
in
lattes. I'm a basic white bitch. Absolutely.
right,
Go ahead.
but so do I, and I'm not white. So it's just like that's the things. It's such a human thing. It's not a black person problem. It's not a white problem to fix. It's not a brown problem. It's just it's a human problem to fix, and that's why we all have to be trying to fix it. It's human in every level.
Yeah. I, but I feel like it's more white people's problem.
But if it's just a white person problem to fix, then it becomes and then it's still white people, black people, brown people. You know, it's
I
still
see. I
you
see.
know it's I agree we need white people to join. Like I said, I need white people to speak up for me, but it's because that's the way the world views it. But I need them to speak up for me because they view me as a human that needs to be spoken for, not as the brown guy who needs to be spoken for. But just like, all right, well, you guys are ignoring this human, and for some reason you value my opinion more. I will speak up for them, but it's because I want them to be on my level of, like to be valued and respected as much as I am. I don't know.
Isn't that white knighting though? Isn't that the equivalent? Like when a guy comes in and he's like, "Behold this woman, she is weak and cannot speak for herself." And you're like, "No, no, I'm good. I could say something." I mean, they're probably not going to listen to me as much, so I appreciate you stepping in. But I can't stand up for myself, so thank you. Isn't that kind of like that? Or no?
Um, I don't know. I honestly didn't even hear the term of white knighting until 5 seconds ago.
Oh, wait,
But
really?
yeah, I'm Team Toad said white knighting is done when you to win favor. I don't know. Is that it? Because I do feel like sometimes that happens, right? Like hey, let me. That's why I didn't post. Like I might have donated, but I didn't like post because it just I don't know if it's like am I posting proof that I donated so like I win favor with people rather than why I donated in the first place was to because to
Right.
help with these causes. um I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you trying to show people, look, I'm not a racist? Like, why are you trying so hard to let
Right.
people know that you're not a racist? That's sketchy. I
Yeah.
get that. Yeah. I think there's a difference between being a white savior and using your privilege for the cause. I like that, Candace. I'm Portuguese and European in this food. I do want to answer. Sorry, before we get to that, Team Toad House asks, when your effort to connect is a microaggression, how do you heal from that hurt? So, like, if somebody brings you again upside down pineapple cake, right? How do you get past that? You just tell yourself that they did it with good thinking.
um I mean, it's again a two-way street. Like if I'm hurt by that, and then I bring that hurt to that person, and they think, what's the reply? Are they thinking? Do they reply with, well, I mean, you should have liked it. You are Salma and Tyron, so you should have liked pineapple, or like how are they replying? Are they saying sorry? I didn't know. I just guessed, and I guess I should
Right.
have asked you, right? So it's
Scenario based then.
right.
Hmm.
I think there could definitely be scenarios where um it isn't as fun of a conversation, and maybe there isn't healing. I don't know.
Hmm. Okay, fair, fair. I'm Portuguese and European, and this food thing is way over me. Can someone explain? I'm white Portuguese, born from a white person, born in Africa that was a minority protector. I don't think this food stuff exists here since I like everything. Maybe because we have brought food to and from all over. I was blown away about the food thing. I had no idea it was a thing. Again, as a Russian person who moved to the US, I was just really excited that there was all kinds of food here. Like in Russia, if it's not August, you cannot buy a watermelon, right? So like I want to eat watermelon all the time. I don't care if I'm eating it with a giraffe, with a Pikachu, with a Thai. I just want to eat watermelon. Like I love watermelon. And
Yeah.
so what will happen is that I will say to Thai, I'll be like, "Let's have watermelon." And then somebody on the side, or maybe even Thai could be like, "Are you offering me watermelon?" Because, and honestly, I just freaking love watermelon. So I get the confusion from other places being like, can we
Yeah.
just, food is food? Can we just leave the
Right.
food thing to the side? Yeah. Like, I love Russian food because I grew up with it. But, like, I also really like tacos. It's not because I'm trying to appease Mexican people that are around
Right.
me, which they're not that many. I live in a very white town, but like I could still like tacos, right?
And I think you like a lot of the scenarios when presented, we're assuming that the person, it is like our first interaction. Like most of these
That's
interactions I've
also
had with
true.
people,
Yeah,
I have a history of interactions, and so I can base off that one interaction off of a history of it. So they
true.
asked me to bring, um, watermelon. Well, the last time they asked me to bring ice cream, and the last time they like, so I think
Right.
you can definitely base that off of that, right? So if I'm asked to bring watermelon, then fried chicken, and then Kool Aid, and then I can
Right.
start to think, okay, all right, well, maybe these aren't the same thing. Like, then you can start to piece that together. But a lot of these, yeah, I feel like we forget context when we get these questions, because context is huge, and that's why
Right.
I feel, um just bring that up too. I like all those things too because they're good.
Context does really help. Ravi, have a wonderful night, sunshine. Thank you so much for being here and for bringing in your beautiful opinions. Thank you.
All right, Ravi.
Yeah. It's an extreme then. It's true. Here I am saying don't bring in, fringe extremes, and I'm bringing in it fringe extremes as an example. But I just thought they were easily accessible, right? Because
Yeah.
those are considered microaggressions. Like, but that's very different. Assuming you like pineapple upside down cake is very different than me being like, oh, this guy probably does drugs because he's black. Those are two different things. But
Right.
I didn't want to use the latter example because that one
Yeah.
is a lot scarier. That one is a lot scarier. And for anybody who's going to quote me out of context, I don't think that. I just, because I'm sure there's some good soul out there who might. I'm just not a fan of pizza, pineapple and pizza. Uh, ba, ba, ba. I try to stay calm, prove them that I'm not, because it's not about me. How do you feel about the word racist?
How do I feel about the word racist? What do
Racist,
you what do you,
because,
what do you mean?
yeah, because I have said, or I think, that white people, actually all people, need to sit with the word racist and recognize there's a lot of feelings and emotions behind that word, but there
Right.
doesn't have to be. Like, people take being called a racist the equivalent of being called a murderer. And that's what it feels like online. Like if somebody gets called rape, they get so upset and then defensive, right? If you're upset, you get defensive. If you're defensive, you probably get meaner. But I feel like racist is a term that we need to learn to sit with and be like, what did I do wrong? right? Just like being called a bigot or a homophobe. Like, what did I do to be called this term? And if you genuinely step back and you go, no, that wasn't homophobic behavior. I think out of context I can maybe, but that wasn't homophobic. Then you really don't need to get defensive about it.
Right, yeah.
It's a
That's
weak word used to
interesting.
shut down discussion. Kit Carbon, I do agree with that. I feel like a lot of discussions have been shut down by being like, you're just a racist. And then that's the end of the conversation.
Right.
White people fear being labeled as racist more than their actions, thoughts that are problematic. I think this comes greatly from cancel culture and the fear that once this label is given to me, I cannot recover from it. And I see people being fired, canceled due to a label they're given. Wow, that's a really good point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because I agree, like there is a lot of emotion in it that doesn't need to be there. And I can kind of go back to the days where people would have said you're a homophobe. Um and they would have been right. And they would have been right. And
Yeah,
it wasn't until I moved out and I dealt with those labels that were given to me. And I thought, I mean, am I a homophobe or am I just, doing what's right and what God wants me to do? And then I'm
right.
wrestling with that and I'm like, I am. These decisions, these things I've said or these decisions I've made are homophobic and that's something I need to deal with and I think is wrong. And so because I think a lot of people will be like, I'm not homophobic. That's just like the way it is, or like I'm not racist. It's just, and then instead of saying I'm not racist, it's like, well, why did they say I'm racist? Like you said, look at what they said and and break that down and be like, was that actually a decision or something I said out of a racist thought? Because I think it
That's a
should
good point.
have a lot of weight behind it because it is a big claim, but it's also okay to look at your own behaviors and actually wonder, was it racist? Was it racist? And do I need to change something? Because we're always changing, right? It's not like we believe the same thing for our whole lives. And I think
Right.
it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't help that the school system teaches us that being wrong is one of the worst things. Agreed. I do agree. Yeah, we're not taught that making mistakes is a ways of progress. Not really.
Yeah.
I
Right.
think that they have to look at why they're being defensive. Most of my experiences, people get defensive with me out of guilt or hidden truths. I agree with that. People get exceptionally more upset if you feel like you have to get defensive over a term. I don't feel like I have to defend my not being racist because I don't think I'm a racist because I don't take actions that are racist. And if I did say something that would make somebody call me a racist, I would sit back and be like, well, maybe my turn of phrase sounded racist.
Right.
Or maybe actually that was an incorrect understanding that I had that is based on a racist understanding that I've had that's been ingrained in me or whatever. Like you can say something racist without it being world ending, but I agree it's really, like Candace is saying, really it is based on the fact that like people's lives end over being called racist.
Right.
I've been called a lot of names from helping out black people racist. I don't know what those names because I feel like I needed to help black people because once there was a group of 10 to 2 black people and they're bullying them. So I feel like don't hurt them. They did nothing wrong. So then I got called names. Aw.
Being comfortable. I like
Fight
what
me. Huh.
Bliffle is saying too. That our school system has taught us that being wrong
Yeah.
is the worst thing possible. But if we learn to be comfortable with making mistakes, which I is why I think like this is even a race issue, but like why it's so hard after you graduate high school and that whole college phase,
Yeah.
because we're learning that being wrong is normal, and we're learning
Yeah.
it quickly,
I
and we're
still
learning
haven't learned that. I still haven't learned
right,
that.
right. Yeah, when I
Yeah.
say after high school, I mean 18 so far to 31, and it
Yeah,
might
yeah,
go
yeah.
on because that's as long as I've lived, but I'm sure it's going to continue.
Yeah. I love being wrong. It doesn't happen often, but when I am, I love it. I have learned to accept when I am wrong as well. But but I really think it's through like 3 years of streaming that I have learned. But I also think I cultivated a community that's made it okay for me to be wrong.
Right.
But I also think I've cultivated it because when I'm wrong, I've stepped back and apologized instead of defending it myself.
Yeah.
But I also think that I don't defend myself because I've started to learn that being wrong is okay. So it's all snowball.
Right. No, I agree.
Yeah. Being wrong means, yeah. Sorry, Ty, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead. I wasn't saying, I was just agreeing. Ashes, I have not been offended at all. Just to be clear. I'm loving conversations as well because
Same.
I feel like most of the interactions have been through social media. So with friends, I'm like, no, can we not have this interaction with social media? But like, can we get face to face and talk about this? And so when M messaged me and was like, you want to talk about this? I was like, I would love to talk about this because not only do I love talking about this, but I love showing other people how talks like this can happen. Because we view everything social media, so we just assume, oh, every conversation about this gets heated. Someone calls someone else some racist, and they go back to believing what they believe, rather than just having a normal conversation. Like we've talked about the Confederate flag, we've talked about Nazis, and we've talked about pineapple upside down cake and pumpkin spice latte. Like that's just a normal conversation.
Right.
Just you can have normal conversations about race, and it doesn't have to be this heated argument.
Right.
That's why I love it, and so yeah, not offended.
I have to say, so is there somewhere, just to keep this interesting, because we haven't disagreed on anything yet. I've asked you to clarify stuff and explain and what you think, but we haven't disagreed on anything. Do you think that you have any controversial opinions that, like, yeah, that's just the bottom line. Do you think you have any controversial opinions? You don't have to say what they are because I don't want to like open a can of worms you're not ready to open.
I feel like I have to because you started our Zoom call with, is anything off topic or off the table? And I said no. So I do feel like I need to own up to that. I don't know if I have controversial. Candace, I should ask Candace because
she's the one you disagree with. Yeah, that's actually probably what I would do too. I would call my husband and be like, yo, what do I say that's stupid? What was the question? Candace, the question is, does he have any controversial opinions? Because we've been agreeing on pretty much everything. So is there anything that we wouldn't necessarily agree on? I think as our world becomes more global with the internet, we have to learn much more about more cultures in order to be welcoming and sensitive towards it. So of course we'll mess up and learn more having learning pains. I agree.
Yeah.
Go ahead and ask about Trump. That would be the can and the worms.
I don't think that would be the can and the worms.
No, I don't like
think
him.
Between us. Yeah, I don't think that'd be the can for us.
I don't like him. I think the conversation would get I actually would feel like it would get very bro-y. It would get very like, he's a douchebag, right? Yeah, he's a douche. I don't know. I'm not racist, I'm anti-racist, but I'm actually a cultural xenophobe. Sometimes even with things in my own culture. I think people want to paint themselves good, but we all have issues with some things in other cultures. Not all, obviously. The thing that comes to mind is example, marrying 40-year-old men with 6-year-old kids, or cutting... Oh, boy. Yeah, I don't think I could disagree with that. I don't think that's controversial either, Nelson. Like, we know that that's not bueno. We wouldn't encourage that here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying
that
to think.
Escalated quickly.
I don't know if I have controversial thoughts.
Not amongst, I guess we like each other and we like each other's opinions, and we would find a way to disagree politely. That's what I would think based on the conversations we've had so far.
Yeah.
Tyrone is literally the most... Sorry. I want to read that out loud, but I want you to finish.
Go ahead and delete that.
No, I'm not deleting it. Oh, controversial opinion.
Cancel that one person.
Literally the most loving person I've ever met constantly asks himself, what does love require? Not only to his friends, but also complete strangers. So I think where he always tries to approach with love, he is not very controversial. Candace, that's why you picked him, right? That's why. Because you find people like that and you hold on to them with your whole heart. Yeah, there's no minimum age for marriage in the U.S. Generally, some places insist on court's parental consent, but actual minimum, nope. Oof. Here we go. I might borrow 1,000%. I don't want an emergency room. Throw white privilege at me, even though I brought my mother there. That I had a bit of a giggle because, well, I'm an 8 Swede. I have a lot of European ancestry, but besides that, that's all over the map of my man. It's but that's another thing. People get real upset about white privilege, and like,
Oh yeah, I have friends.
it's
who are very
okay to
upset about
say.
it.
Wait, sorry, what?
I have friends who are very upset about it.
I've heard a lot of
White
people
friends
get
who-
upset about it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think.
I don't.
Oh, do you have friends that are upset about it? Like that like or you said the other day you had a talk with somebody who said white privilege isn't a thing.
Yeah,
Um,
there are people in this audience that are regular viewers of mine who don't believe in it and who get upset about
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your question? The Karens of the world.
yeah, and my best friend, childhood friend, doesn't believe it's a thing. Um,
Yeah, it's not the idea that white people can't have a hard time of it. That's not what
right.
white privilege. Maybe it's a wording thing. Privilege implies that all white people have it made. That's not what white privilege is. That's not what anybody's saying. White privilege is saying, when I was little, I was a girl, so I did get different warnings, but I never had to have the conversation of like, make sure you get a receipt when you walk out of the store so people don't think you stole something. That was not a conversation I had at home because I was a tiny little white girl and store clerks didn't think tiny little white girls steal stuff. So that was not a conversation I had to have. That's white privilege. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember going to a grocery store in a small town I lived in, and someone following me around the whole time, and it was a friend of mine, and I said, so I like turned around, and I was like, Christian, like, do you want to talk? And he's like, sorry, my manager just told me I have to follow you guys.
Oh my God.
And that's something none of my white friends have ever dealt with, and Christian was just doing his job, and I was like, okay, I'm sorry you have to follow. I'm sure you're uncomfortable with this. We were just in high school, so I just bought my thing and left, and he apologized about it. But it's yeah, it's a thing, but I don't mind. Like I'm gonna take this book down that Kid Carbon put, and I'll make sure to read it because I again don't want to only listen to my own opinion, or people that I'm very afraid of ever being in an echo chamber. I don't want to be.
That's true. Same.
Because I have been. That's why I thought. That's why I spent so much of my childhood going to rallies and passing out pamphlets to people of the LGBT community, thinking they were going to go to hell, they were not loved, and it was because I grew up in a community of echo chambering. It's just, and there was no questioning out of that, and so it took a long time to break that, and it took me leaving the state and going to a different state and getting culture shock and to find out my own opinions.
White privilege is never fearing the cops until I married a person of color, and now I have to hope I'm capable of de-escalating a situation. I'm going to from not caring if the cops are called to knowing I have to repeat to the police that my husband if a POC is a POC if we ever need to call for help. Yeah. Oh, is loser a repeat offender? Get out of here. Being ginger, the conversation my parents had with me is trying not to steal too many souls. Get out of here. Oh man.
Oh, but that's like something I think about when I tell people, like, to understand that people are in their own process and like we're all figuring it out. Like that good people believe stupid things. Like that actually was a thought that gingers stole souls, right? Or like remember when it wasn't even long ago when people thought smoking wasn't bad for your health.
Oh my God,
right?
it was recommended.
Yeah.
Doctors would recommend smoking as it expanded your lungs.
expanded your lungs.
Yes.
And so it's just crazy because like, so when I'm telling people, hey, we're all trying to figure this out and become smarter. Good people, smart people have believed stupid things.
Right.
A whole generation of good people, smart people, believed
Yeah.
smoking was good for you.
There's
And
a
then I
lot of,
spent my
yeah.
like a week at school in a dare program learning that it wasn't. And I was like, oh, mom, why did you do it for so long? She's like, I didn't know. We were all told it was fine. It was actually good for you.
Yeah. Hi, doll. Yeah. It's true. I think there's a misconception that, like, if you do something or you don't know better, you're stupid.
Right.
And I strongly disagree with that. Or, like, just being stupid, it's an insult, right? Like, calling somebody unaware of something stupid is insulting them. So there's
Right.
this implication that, like, if I have to learn from something, it means I must be stupid, therefore people think less of me. But I think that that's a societal thing that we need to just, like, kind of get through and over and
Right.
out. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that also plays into um why like my white friends may not try and learn the other side because then you have to address something that even not only where
Yeah.
your thoughts might be racist, but you are then even belittled more because you're stupid, right? Like, and it's not
Right.
that you're stupid, you're just learning, and
Right.
that's like, it's totally okay.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. It's that it's synonymous. Racist is synonymous with the end of everything, where racist is a way to explain that your behavior is not okay and you need to learn. But that's not how we present it to people.
Right.
Yeah.
And it goes
Yeah,
back to that whole cancel culture. Like it can
it
be
is.
the everything end of everything, if you're presumed a racist.
Yeah. So this one person, the way I can relate to this is, um, this one person on Twitter at one point, I defended this. I didn't defend the guy. So this man was exposed for being an abuser, and I didn't defend him, but I said nobody deserves to be dragged the way he's being dragged. You know, people get into
Yeah.
bad relationships, people do wrong stuff, but that doesn't mean their entirety of their life should be over because of the wrong things that they've done, especially if they're trying to be better. And I was called a abuse sympathizer, and I was told that I give generic ass mental health advice because really I'm just fake and I believe that people who are in abusive situations deserve abuse. And I understood that the person who said this, it came from a place of hurt. This person had been abused
Right.
themselves. So they took me saying don't hurt the abuser as basically me saying don't hurt abusers, period, or don't reprimand abusers or whatever. And so, but how this person came at me.
Yeah.
And potentially, if enough people echo chambered with her, I could have been canceled for being a sympathizer. Right. When my point was, hey, let's not cancel somebody over this mistake it's a terrible mistake, but let's let them speak. Nobody let them speak. Yeah.
Yeah. There's our controversial statement. There, you brought it.
I did.
Yeah.
There you go.
That is, but I agree. Like, I think, my mom was abused. I hate abusers, but
right.
I understand that they are human, and that there's it doesn't justify what he did, but there are things in his life that have triggered this, and like
right.
there's a story behind this. He didn't just wake up one morning and was like, I think I want to be an abuser today. And so
right. I'm not, yes, it's not okay. It's never right, okay. In no scenario. There's no excuse. There's no explanation. It's not okay at all. I was abused. It's not okay. It's not coming from somebody who doesn't understand what abuse is. Like, I want to make that super clear before we keep going. But I have seen people, like, there are people like my dad who I've confronted and said, yo, you're abusive. And they're like, you are an asshole. That's why I abused you. And you're like, okay, you're a dick. I'm not talking to you about this. This is pointless. But I've also seen people who have come to me, back to me, and said, I treated you like a fucking dick. I can't believe I did that. Here's what I'm doing. I'm donating to women's abuse causes. I am going to make sure that I dedicate, like, I do this thing. I make sure that my next girlfriend knows that I have this history. I'm going to make amends for what I'm going to go to therapy. Like, all these things, right? Doesn't that person deserve a chance to redeem themselves?
Yeah. 100%. Yes.
It comes from the fact that, like, and maybe this is me, what do you call it? Like, presenting. I have been in an abusive relationship where I was sexually assaulted. But I also know that in that same relationship, I was a fucking dick. I'm not saying that made me deserve the abuse in any shape or form. But I am saying that it was a toxic relationship for both of us. I stayed in it for too long. They were terrible. What they did was wrong. But I stayed in it for too long, and I definitely said some terrible things, and I wasn't the best person, and all my point is we're both awful for each other. Does that mean that I get to say they abused me, and then that person gets to get dragged through the mud, and their life completely ruined? I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and this, it goes back to it being a human, these are all human issues. And so, like, I think about, like, because there's been talk about, like, defund the police, and like, where do those funds go? And, like, I'm like, man, wouldn't it be awesome if we put more emphasis on therapists and getting these people, like changing behavior, rather than just, like, repeating that, and like helping these people improve, rather than just saying, this is you are defined by this, you're never going to come back from it. That's not the truth. Like, we are people who make mistakes, a ton of mistakes, but we are people who can also learn from those mistakes and become better for it. And so,
and some people can't. Some people can't. I'm not defending those people, but I feel like if you are in a place where you're like, I want to be better, I feel like you deserve a chance to prove to people. You don't just deserve forgiveness automatically. I feel like you deserve a chance to prove to people that you've changed.
Right. Or deserve a chance to change.
To change,
because I feel like cancel culture, like, removes that chance, like, removes the chance to change, or it even has, like, removed change already. Like, there's some people who, I think about people who get caught for, like, a tweet that they tweeted out that was homophobic 12 years ago. I'm like, man, if I had Twitter 12 years ago,
I would have.
When I was in the status that I was in, I used homophobic slurs online.
I did.
Yeah, like playing Halo. I used
ableist language
so freely.
Yeah.
And so
terrible.
And I'm like, I'm so thankful that I never had it, because then I got to change. But I always worry, like, what am I doing wrong now?
That somebody's gonna dig that up.
Yeah, and then I'm like, man, I didn't get to change from that.
Team Toad House, I'm gonna get to your question, but unless you murder somebody, abuse children, that's not. Yes, no, there's definitely people who don't deserve redemption, and their lives are defined by these terrible things that they've done. Like, no, but okay, I should probably also clarify that the situation I'm describing, not my relationship, but the relationship, the guy that I defended, they had written some mean tweets to each other. They weren't even, like, not tweets. They had, like, there were DMs that were exposed, and they were not nice DMs. And it was not nice exchanges. But it was also a long-distance relationship. And I'm not saying that it's not, like, mental abuse is just as bad as physical abuse and all that, of course. But, like, I read through it, and I was like, this is not something you can't redeem yourself from. That's my point. Like, it did not look like something that somebody cannot come back from a better person. If he had said, like, oh, and there are definitely people who commit crimes that I'm like, I don't want to hear it. The fact that you did this in the first place, like, get the hell, like, we don't give Ted Bundy another chance to be Ted Bundy, you know? Uh, but Team Toadhouse asks, what if the person says sorry and then does it again? In my experience, that's what happens. So it's difficult to trust a person to be sincere. That's on them. What do you think, Ty?
I think it's okay to remove yourself. Yeah, allowing someone to change doesn't mean that you have to be there for that change. Like you can
Oh,
remove yourself from that situation because it's a toxic situation. It's not doing you any good, and still allow them to change their actions and things, and things like that. Yeah.
oh. So just right, okay. Oh man, I love that. I love that because like my stepmom emotionally abused me, and if she came around and said I'm a new person, I'd be like, great, can you be a new person over there? Like I
Yeah.
wouldn't necessarily let them back into my life. That's a really interesting point, Toadhouse. Very well said. Yeah, I agree. Uh Every storm runs out of rain, just like every dark night runs into the day. Every heartache will fade away. The situation with what's going on needs love. Eliminate the hate across the board. So many people need to be brought up and not kicked down. Two-step Jester, that's beautiful. Yeah, social norms changed. A lot of people are just trying to fit in because standing out doesn't feel outstanding. What we do in Portugal already isn't enough. It gets done in the USA, it's decades too late. In Portugal, instead of criminalizing hard drug abuse, we decriminalized it and provide them with shot rooms. Drug abuse reduced to 41% immediately, and also crime related to it. The problem with the USA is that politicians and people, yeah, there's a little bit too much political involvement in situations that are not political at all. Apology has 4 parts. I messed up. I hurt you. I understand. I will improve. So if you apologize and change nothing, it's a lie. Then I um I want to address something real quick. I hope this isn't taken away. I removed the Black Lives Matter uh, Discord room, and I did it not because I don't feel like it's important, or that the issue is not important to me, or that the issue is gone, or that it should be swept under the rug, but because I feel like, one, the conversations are better had live, and I'm creating a space to have them live so that we can do what I'm doing with Ty and go back and forth and elaborate on this and explain that. And because I just wasn't there to monitor it and do the follow-up steps. So if somebody said something in there that wasn't good, I wasn't there to be like, this is why it's not okay. I was not in a space and don't have the bandwidth to educate people outside of my live streams. So I hope people understand. The end. I never made a public statement about it.
No, I think that's a good call. I mean, I feel like the conversations happen so frequently and easy on stream that
Yeah.
it's best to have them there than in Discord, that you might not be able to help, because the conversation can so quickly get out of hand, as we've all
Right.
probably seen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a
Yeah.
smart call.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, that was my controversial opinion, Ty. You still haven't given us yours, so.
Yeah, well, we went to the one person that was supposed to give it to us, and she did nothing but compliment me. So if we're gonna blame anyone, it's gonna be her.
Oh, it's Candace's fault. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Candace is a doo-doo head. I said it. I said it.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
I really like
well, that's
her
not
very
controversial.
much.
That's
That's
very
not...
much agreed upon.
Wow, I know, right? I had to say doo-doo head of all the things. You're doing your work here where it's present and you're protecting those and removing a situation where you can't. So good work. All right, 2-step. I appreciate that. Now you're good. This has been such a cathartic, healing conversation tonight. Thanks for being on, Ty. Right, Team Toadhouse? Thank you for being here. I know this isn't your main platform, so thank you for being here. Can you come back? I dig your compassion. He's coming back a lot, okay? He was the first person I thought of to have this so I didn't want to have this conversation in an echo chamber of white girl talks about Black Lives Matter, okay? And I was like, well, who do I invite who I know will have a level-headed opinion about this? So I have Ty on. I'm gonna talk to Kareem Cheese next week.
Nice.
And I'm the only thing I'm an asshole about, and I feel bad. I didn't think to ask for a feature for us. Literally, until yesterday. And then it was too late to ask for one. So I feel like a butthead. But yeah. Mixer won't even let me customize my icon? Wait, really? That's silly. Allyship is the best. Aw. But I don't remember what I was... Oh, yeah,
I
Kyrie and
love
Cheese.
that I got to come back on.
Yeah. Oh, you'll
Uh,
be back on a bunch. I told you that.
I
don't just say that to anybody.
It's just crazy that like it's been a month. It's just crazy. Like
It has been a month.
When you asked me about it and we set the date, I like started to look at numbers, and I was like, so May 19th, I'm on, and we talk about me, and we talk about just like streaming, and then May 25th, George Floyd gets murdered, unjustly murdered, and the climate and the culture and the whole thing changes from then to now. That's just a month ago. And so the fact that we got to talk about this, and everyone's been talking about it, but it's the fact that you got to allowed me to come talk about it. I was touched and I was excited because these are conversations that I love having. But it's just been it's just weird that our conversation within a month apart is so different.
So different.
Yeah,
so
like
different.
Just everything is that much changed within a week of the last time I was on this show, and it's just crazy to think about. 2020 has been a wild ride. Like, pandemic is still there, and then the ugly face of racism reminds us that it's still there. Like, it's like, I didn't go anywhere, guys. I've been here longer than COVID. Right. And we're like, oh, right.
I'm kind of happy. Hear me out. I'm kind of happy that we're in COVID now, because I feel like a lot of the momentum that we have is because people are at home and jobless. And if you were a white person who was sitting in your white collar job before and going, A, this isn't my problem, B, I gotta work head down, I have so much work to do, and you were doing that, and now you don't have a job, and you are able to protest, it's a lot of things lined up. That's all I'm saying. I'm not grateful for COVID or anything. I don't want anybody to interpret it that way. But I am saying, like, a lot of things have to line up socially and culturally for a movement this big to happen, and it's happening, and it's because of how things lined up socially.
It's forcing us to focus on it.
Yes, Candace, we're supposed to listen.
Dave Chappelle video?
Wait, can you repeat that? You cut out in my headphones. I know your
Did you watch the Dave Chappelle video?
No.
Called 846. He talks about, so it because of that video, it's ingrained in me the amount of time it took. So he knelt on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. That's why he's titled that. But he talks about how the world was going to shit before, but on the same night that the world was going to shit, and it was about racism, and there was the riots in Texas, and was the night that Kobe Bryant was playing his last game, and how even though with all that craziness, people were still like couldn't help but like flip back to the sports game where Kobe Bryant was playing his last game. And so that's why I feel like it's such a focus. Like, if I could, it's possible that I just don't pay attention to stuff and I maybe watch basketball, or like if the playoffs are happening and I'm seeing LeBron James go against Kawhi, and I'm like, okay, well, I get that race is a big issue and I get that this problem is in our country, but it's really hard to turn away from this basketball game. But that doesn't exist right now. It's like, no, this is the issue, and the distractions cannot exist because of COVID. You have to focus on this issue now. And so in a twisted way, it's like this was the time for it to happen. It's like really weird.
Yeah. I think we're gonna end it on that. Thank you so much for all the follows and the support. By the way, Ty, what color rainbow do you want? They're all on the board here. So blue, green, red, or pink?
I'm gonna go red.
Red. All right, wonderful humans. I'm gonna leave it at that because I think that's a good place to leave it on. We are going to go over right now to Asika as she celebrates Pride Month. That was the plan all along. And we're going to continue talking there about, we're going to shift directions onto some. Stride Cypher, thank you so much. Holy guacamole. Thank you. Wow. Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for having me. Have a good night,
Oh,
Em.
have a wonderful night. I appreciate you all. If you feel like the world is dark and nobody can give you the love and the care that you deserve, go out there and be that light to others. Have a wonderful night. I'll see you tomorrow for some Animal Crossing.